Yeah.
Welcome back to the Gridiron Expert, bringing you some of the best college football news, predictions, and analysis. Make sure to like this video, go follow us on Twitter at Gridiron Expert, and check out our official website, thegridironexpert.com, where you can sign up for our weekly newsletter and also sign up for our expert picks. The links for all of those things are in the description below, so do not miss out on any of this extra college football content. As we all know, this Saturday we have another huge matchup out of the SEC, as number 2 LSU travels to take on number 3 Alabama at Bryant-Denny Stadium. In a game that is once again being dubbed as the game of the century, it got me thinking a little bit and wondering, what are the top 5 Alabama LSU games since the year 2000? What are the top 5 Alabama LSU games of this century? Well, you're about to find out. In a game that will be called the Game of the Century this Saturday, we take a look at the top 5 of this century collectively, and we'll kick things off with number 5. To kick off our rankings, you have to go all the way back to the beginning of the century, where in the year 2000, LSU defeated Alabama 30-28 in Death Valley. And this was a monumental game for LSU because coming into this game, they had not won over Alabama at home since 1969. It had been 31 years since LSU had defeated Alabama in Baton Rouge, and that was all about to change in 2000. And that was all about to change thanks to a guy named Nick Saban, who in 2000 was kicking off his first season with LSU. Once again, so crazy how things can change in just a span of 19 years. But in this game, a game where neither team was ranked, a game where neither team was the powerhouse they are now, it was tied at 14 going into the fourth quarter. Alabama struck first, going up 21-14 with just 12 minutes remaining in the game. But that is when LSU's offense came alive. They scored 16 points in the next 7 minutes to go up 30-21. Alabama scored a late touchdown with 7 seconds left to cut it to 30-28, but then LSU recovered the onside kick to get their first win at home over the Crimson Tide since 1969. The two teams combined for 30 points in the fourth quarter after combining for only 28 in the first 3 quarters. So a signature win for the Tigers, who went on to finish the season at 8-4 in Nick Saban's first year. Alabama finishing an abysmal 3-8. And to sum it all up, Lionel Thomas, the safety for LSU, concluded the game by saying, "The last time we beat them here, a man was walking on the moon. Today, we're a part of history." Fast forward 8 years. It's crazy how much can change in such a short amount of time. LSU was being led by Les Miles, and Alabama was being led by none other than Nick Saban. The former LSU head coach who coached the Tigers from 2000 to 2004, left for the NFL, but decided to come back to the college ranks to not only join the SEC, to not only join the SEC West, but to join their bitter rival in Alabama. This game was monumental as well because this marked the first time that Nick Saban was making his return to Death Valley. LSU defeated the Crimson Tide back in 2007, and Saban was hoping to get his revenge at his former home stadium. And he did, in fact, get that revenge, but it was not pretty. LSU tied the game up at 21 with 6:12 remaining in the fourth quarter. But John Parker Wilson, the Crimson Tide quarterback, led Alabama on what should have been a game-winning drive, getting all the way to the LSU 12-yard line to set up a game-winning field goal with just 3 seconds remaining. But the kick was blocked, and LSU seemed destined to win once again, to move to 2-0 over their former head coach. But in overtime, LSU got the first possession, and Jarrett Lee threw one of his 4 interceptions on the day in overtime, which allowed Alabama to score in just 3 plays on a John Parker Wilson quarterback sneak from the 1-yard line. Alabama won this game 27-21 over the 15th ranked LSU Tigers. Alabama ended up making the SEC championship that year before falling to Florida and then falling to Utah in the Sugar Bowl, while LSU finished 8-5, defeating Georgia Tech in the Chick-fil-A Bowl. Coming in at number 3, we have the original game of the century between these two programs, as number 1 LSU defeated number 2 Alabama 9-6 in overtime all the way back in 2011. And this game truly showed why LSU and Alabama deserve to be the number 1 and number 2 teams in the country. This game was about as even as you can get. LSU held the ball for just 28 seconds more than Alabama. Alabama outgained LSU by just 56 yards, and each team had 2 turnovers in this game. But one of those turnovers was way bigger than the other. And that, of course, was probably the play of the game in this game of the century. Eric Reid's interception all the way down at the LSU 1-yard line, ripping the ball away from Alabama tight end Michael Williams. The game was tied 6-6 at this point, and Alabama had the ball on LSU's 28-yard line, knocking at the door. A touchdown in a game like this could have very well won it. But Eric Reid made a phenomenal play, getting back over to make that interception, and while LSU did not get any points off of that, they prevented Alabama from doing so. They pinned them deep and later forced overtime. And on the first possession of overtime, Alabama missed their field goal, which of course allowed LSU to line up for a game winner, which they hit to win the game 9-6. Now, of course, in a game decided by field goals, all the points scored by field goals, it ended up being a game that Alabama probably should have won. Because while everybody likes to remember that brilliant interception, everybody remembers that LSU did in fact win this game, remember that Alabama missed 4 field goals in this game. Of course, one of those coming in overtime, but 4 combined field goals between the 2 kickers in this game against LSU, which prevented Alabama from winning at home. But in the grand scheme of things, it doesn't matter. Because this same year, these 2 teams met up once again as the number 1 and number 2 teams in the country in the BCS National Championship game down in New Orleans, and this time, Alabama did not have any kicking woes. They hit 5 field goals before Trent Richardson busted out the lone touchdown of the game, a 34-yard touchdown run with 4.5 minutes left to give Alabama a 21-0 victory over LSU in the national championship game. Just 1 year after the game of the century and Alabama's national championship victory over LSU, these 2 programs once again met as top 5 teams in another instant classic. Number 1 Alabama defeated number 5 LSU 21-17 in 2012 in Death Valley. And this was a game that LSU should have won because LSU manhandled Alabama for the entire game. They dominated this game. LSU outgained Alabama by over 100 yards. They owned the time of possession by over 10 minutes. And they forced 2 turnovers from the Crimson Tide while committing none themselves. But still, LSU found themselves down 14-3 at halftime. But the second half they came alive. Les Miles lit a fire under his team. The offense got going. The defense was getting stops. And before you knew it, LSU had turned a 14-3 deficit into a 17-14 fourth quarter lead after Zach Mettenberger hit Jarvis Landry on a 14-yard touchdown pass with just a little over 8 minutes remaining. But this is where things got crazy for Les Miles. The Mad Hatter got a little too crazy. With 8:41 left remaining in the game, LSU went for it on 4th and 1 from the Alabama 24-yard line and got stuffed. They could have lined up for a field goal and gotten the 3 points, but they did not. Got stuffed. Then later on in the game, with just a little over a minute left, 1:34 remaining, LSU lined up for another field goal and missed it. That's 6 points that LSU left on the field. 6 points that became very crucial in a game that they lost by just 4. After the missed field goal, with 1.5 minutes remaining, Alabama drove down the field in just 36 seconds. A.J. McCarron went 3 for 4, 72 yards, including the game-winning pass, little slip screen pass to T.J. Yeldon for 28 yards to get the game-winning touchdown as Alabama escaped Death Valley with a 21-17 victory once again in a game that the Tigers should have won. But nonetheless, Alabama won that game, still lost in 2012 to Texas A&M, but ended up winning the national championship anyways over Notre Dame, while LSU finished the season 10-3, losing the Chick-fil-A Bowl to Dabo Swinney and the Clemson Tigers. And our number one game of the century between LSU and Alabama comes all the way back in 2007, arguably the craziest year of college football in history, as number 3 LSU defeated number 17 Alabama 41-34 in Tuscaloosa. And this game was just a pure back-and-forth game, an absolute thriller, but even had more emotion to it because this was Nick Saban's first time facing off against LSU as head coach of the Crimson Tide. He coached LSU from 2000 to 2004, left to go to the NFL and coach the Miami Dolphins, and then returned to the college ranks to take over at Alabama in 2007. And for a while, it looked like LSU was just going to run away with this game. They were angry. They were the number 3 team in the country, and they wanted to stick it to their old coach. The Tigers led 17-3 early second quarter, but then Alabama turned on the Jets, scoring 24 unanswered points to go up 27-17 with just 1 minute left in the third quarter. But then LSU, they woke up offensively. Matt Flynn hit Demetrius Byrd for a 61-yard touchdown at the end of the third quarter, and then tied it early in the fourth at 27. After a Bama punt return for a touchdown, LSU found themselves down 34-27. But Matt Flynn kept his composure, great quarterback for the LSU Tigers, hit Earl Doucette on a 32-yard touchdown with just 2:49 left to tie the ball game at 34. This game, like many others, seemed to be going to overtime between the Tigers and the Crimson Tide. But then, that's where the LSU defense finally made the play of the game. John Parker Wilson, looking to lead a game-winning drive for Alabama, was sacked by Chad Jones. The ball was kicked around and then finally recovered at the Alabama 3-yard line by LSU. Jacob Hester plunged up the middle for a touchdown with just a minute 26 remaining, and LSU was up for good to win this game 41-34. Nick Saban lost in his first game against his former team, but as we all know, ended up getting revenge just the next year in 2008 in Death Valley. And at the conclusion of this year, LSU ended up winning the national championship despite having 2 losses. Despite having 2 losses, including a season finale loss to Arkansas, LSU still won the national championship, while Alabama finished the year 7-6 with a victory over Colorado in the Independence Bowl. And as we all know, things just took off from there for Alabama and Nick Saban. So guys, here are your top 5 games between Alabama and LSU as we approach yet another game of the century this Saturday. Will we be in store for another classic between these two programs? Will it truly be another game of the century? And when we do these rankings again, will we rank this 2019 meeting in the top 5 of this century? We have to wait to find out. 2:30 CBS Saturday, number 2 LSU taking on number 3 Alabama in what is sure to be a surefire classic. So guys, once again, thank you for watching us here on YouTube. Make sure to go follow us on Twitter at Gridiron Expert and check out our official website, thegridironexpert.com. Sign up for the weekly newsletter, sign up for the expert picks, and make sure to go check us out on BetNow. Use our code GRIDIRON to get a 50% signing bonus. The link for all those things are in the description below, and I can promise you don't want to miss out on any of these offers and any of this college football content. And guys, once again, thank you for watching. Please continue to like, comment, and subscribe, and we'll see you next time on The Gridiron Expert.